So you've been trying to make that hit film that's just going to blow the box office away, and you haven't quite figured it out. Let's be honest, basically, you're failing at it. You're a real loser. Well, have no fear, because I've got the solution. If it's one thing that Hollywood has taught me over the years, it's that the underdog always comes out on top, eventually. You see, I've been binge watching every single inspirational football film I could get my hands on this month, you know, as one does, and what I realized is no genre glorifies the underachiever better than the always faithful underdog sports team movie. So if you want to make this happen, then stick around because I'm about to fill you in on everything you need. First off, you're gonna need a main character. That main character, of course, will be played by the most famous person in your cast. That by no means is to imply that this person is a famous actor. They're just the most famous actor relative to the large group of other actors in the film whose careers will be ultimately defined by this one generic film. This main character will, of course, be the coach of the sports team of whatever sport you decide to go with. Doesn't really matter what sport it is. Football, baseball, soccer, basketball, bobsledding. As long as it's the type of sport that you can get close-up action shots that you can cut together in some sort of compilation that have nothing to do with each other, but it still looks good, then you're good to go. Because you don't really need to get distracted with the sports of the movie. That's just a time filler. The main important thing about this movie is the backstory of your coach. You don't have to come up with a backstory. That's all part of the genre. It's always the same thing. This backstory consists of your coach always being somebody who at one point in his life was filled with potential. But before he could meet that potential, either he does something bad or something bad happens to him. This causes him to fall out of grace and lose his big opportunity to become everything he could have been. Basically, he's a has-been. He's somebody whose biggest regret in life is buried deep in his past, yet somehow that big regret is directly related to the sport that you've chosen. Keep that in the back of your mind because that's gonna be important a little bit later. All right, now that we got the coach out of the way, let's focus on the rest of the cast. To do this, all we gotta do is whip out the old diversity checklist. Believe me, you don't wanna stray too far from this checklist. With this, you're gonna be able to fill out a perfect cast of comical losers that your audience will be cheering for all the way to the finals. The nerd. He's got glasses. He can't play sports. The fat kid. Not only is this kid filled with cholesterol, he's also filled with comic relief. He's gonna be playing your goalie if you picked a sport that requires a goalie, or he'll be the catcher if you picked baseball. The girl. This character is misunderstood and out to prove that she can do anything a boy can do. And I mean anything.
Do you pee standing up?
And finally, the bully. While this kid seems mean on the surface, he's actually got a heart of gold. This kid might also end up being your secret weapon, which I'll tell you about in just a second. Then to round out your roster, just sprinkle in a few minorities and you'll be good to go. Now it's time to talk about plot. We start off with our main character finally hitting rock bottom after somehow messing up his life, of course, with that big regret that happened earlier on in his life. As a punishment, or maybe happenstance, after the thing that he did that caused him to hit rock bottom, usually involving drinking an alcoholic substance in a car, this terrible person gets put in charge of a team full of kids.
Get your gear on and get your behind a plate before I kick it up there.
And these kids are such big losers because nobody has ever taken the time to invest in their life. They suck at sports. They know it, the coach knows it, the evil, extremely mean team that's the biggest, best team in the league knows it, and they're not afraid to let them know, especially when they clobber our lovable heroes in the very first game of the season. Use this opportunity as a time to bring your coach's dark history to light, because it just so happens that the coach of that other mean team was his biggest rival or somehow connected to the reason why he made his biggest regret in the first place. And that mean coach is not gonna let our main character forget what a loser he's become, even though they're both coaching in literally the same crappy kids league. Fortunately, this blast from the past is gonna be exactly the kick in the pants that our main coach will need to motivate him to make the team better, because this time, it's personal. All right, so somewhere in here, you're gonna wanna make the coach of the kids find some new player. It's gonna be a secret weapon. He's amazing at the sport. I mean, so good that the coach makes this face. But for some very specific reason, he wasn't able to play. Either he couldn't skate, or he was an illegal immigrant, or he was black. But now the coach or the kids convince him that he can play, and he or she leads the team and the audience through a montage of incredible wins, all leading up to the big championship where they once again face their biggest rival. But now they're gonna be prepared. They've got a team name, uniforms, their secret weapon, confidence, and they've got their coach ready to redeem himself by living vicariously through these poor loser kids who probably just need a father figure. Now, you can jump right into the big game, or before it, to build tension, you can have something terrible happen, like they start questioning the coach's loyalty, or you have one of the kids die. I mean, again, it doesn't really matter because basically anything could probably get fixed by the inspirational advice of a wise old guy. And then at the end, of course, thanks to the confidence that the team has gained throughout the course of the film, they end up winning in literally the closest game ever in history. And also, the coach earns the respect of everybody, including his rival. And somehow, through it all, the lovable kids lead the coach to becoming a better person. That is, of course, until the sequel, whenever somehow everybody forgets everything they learned in the first film. You know, I just realized this is basically the same plot as the King's Speech. If you liked this episode, then check out my other videos, because I've done a lot of reviews over the past 2 years about. Check them out if you want. If you really like the show, then check out patreon.com/saygoodnightkev. That's where you can pledge if you want to donate to the show. There are several great people who do that. Brandon Neely, Westminster Effects, Guitar Pedal Company, Custom, check them out, pretty cool. BarelyProtestant.blogspot.com, really interesting. Leave a comment. That's all I gotta say. I hope everybody has a really Merry Christmas, a very Merry Christmas. That's better because it rhymes. I'm Kevin, holding Christian movies and media up to the same standard as other films and media and movies. I don't remember what it is that I say at the end of this.